Thank you, Francesca, for this very difficult to follow act. I will try. Hi, everybody. So Francesca gave this like really big picture overview, and I will just focus on platform co-ops. And just because I know that many of you here are actually not familiar with that exactly, or I hear that question, like, what is that actually? And so not so clear to everybody. So that's what I will focus on, and I will do this by introducing Esmeralda Flores. And she is a house cleaner in New York City. And unlike other house cleaners, not unlike other house cleaners in New York, she is working through an app so that she can connect with clients. And but unlike other house cleaners who use a typical tech platform, she is paid $25 an hour, which is a living wage. And so she is not exposed to this unpredictable algorithmic boss that I think Francesca also referred to. And that boss that would change her pay or hours from under her feet. And so she has, that gives her family stability. Right? So every week or so, she is meeting with her co-workers. They are getting together to decide how much the company should charge, how much the workers should earn, and to determine how the company should operate. Right? So Esmeralda receives training in conflict resolution, in finance and management, giving her an opportunity to grow as a person within that company. I heard this from many workers in this company, that they say that they grow as people within that. So now you may ask yourself, you know, what tech platform is this? And the answer is it's a platform cooperative, it's Up and Go. And it's not your typical tech platform. And what's different here is that there's a sharing of ownership and management of the platform, and each worker gets an equal vote and in decision making. And when it comes to wages or benefits and much more. So it's a truly democratic workplace, and I think that this is exactly what we need right now. So when we hear what Francesca introduced us to, this sort of big picture overview of the platform capitalism, we see that this is really what we need right now, but it's a more democratic workplace. Instead, at a time when tech platforms deny workers a living wage, when, you know, our benefits, our right to organize, and widening economic inequality in the process, right? So now it's time really for democracy, right, to spread in the workplace. And platform co-ops are one way of making that happen, right? Now, I know that for some of you, when they hear the word co-op, you think of a white guy like me, perhaps standing in a food cooperative, selling you vegan cheese, right? I know you just opened a food cooperative, the first one here in Berlin. And, you know, so you're, you know, like sandals and candles, sunshine and rainbows, you know, that might be sort of the association for some of you. But, and it's true, right? Like food cooperatives are fantastic, but they're really just one group of cooperatives. And co-ops are basically a group of people who come together around a shared need, and you know, be that vegan cheese or house cleaning, and they are willing to work together to run a business to meet that need. Right? So that's essentially what a cooperative is, and whether that need, you know, and they are based on shared ownership and decision making. And co-ops are nothing new. Consumer co-ops, as we know them, have been around since 1844, so the end of of industrialization. In northern England, textile weavers saw their pay cut in half, and which made it difficult for them to afford food. Right? And so they all got together to start a cooperative to sell oatmeal and flour and sugar, right, so that they could feed their families. Today, co-ops in agriculture, not just food cooperatives, are really large. So in the United States, 55% of agricultural products are touched by cooperatives. And you probably heard of names like Ocean Spray or Land O'Lakes, at least if you ever went to the United States. But platform co-ops combine the best of these two tried and true models. The successful, almost 200-year-old model of cooperatives with the much younger one of digital platforms. So, and here's what makes them different, right? So they are different because they are made up of a group of people who each get a vote in decision-making when it comes to how much workers should be paid or how much customers should be charged and whether or not data should be collected and to whom they are sold. And another thing that makes them different is that they give power to the people so that they scale equality, right? And one way they do this is through higher pay. So when we go back to Esmeralda Flores, she works in the cleaning industry, which has an annual turnover rate from at least 75%. But Esmeralda has been with Up & Go almost since its beginning, so for 3 years. Up & Go is 4 years old. Typical tech platforms take out a fat 25 to 50% commission, right, which is an exorbitant amount for immigrants who make up the majority of the gig economy workforce. And so platform co-ops take much less. So the women at Up & Go decided to take 5%, so which is basically accounting for the running of the platform and for credit card fees. And that means that 95% go to the workers, right? 95% go to these workers. Esmeralda can also earn more because the company doesn't have a fiduciary duty to shareholders to maximize profit. And I think that's really important to mention. And here's another thing that makes Up & Go different. Because everyone at Up & Go co-owns the intellectual property of this company, that means that Esmeralda and her co-owners can now start a franchise of social businesses, of social enterprises, of cooperatives, and replicate this model also in other cities, which they are now starting to do in Philadelphia. Lastly, consider that Up & Go is made up mostly of women from Latin America. And when you look at the typical gig economy platform in need of VC funding, the data tells us very clearly that the chances of minority women-led founder teams to find venture capital funding is in the single digit, right? So like a single percentile, so very, very small, which means that these women wouldn't have even been able to build their platform in the first place, right? Let alone provide a fair and equitable option for house cleaners to make a living and add some much needed diversity to the Tech Founders Club. Right? So today there are hundreds of platform co-ops like Up & Go all over the world, and they work in more ways than one. The data tell us that they are more resilient in times of crisis, that they are more productive, that they often pay better, and that they retain more workers because they pay them better. Right? So I really believe that platform co-ops are a better, fairer alternative. And that's why a few years ago, together with some colleagues at the New School, I started the Platform Co-op Consortium at the New School New York City. And there we basically do whatever we can to support platform cooperatives. We are working with more than 500 businesses in over 30 countries. But let me tell you just about a few platform co-ops that are really close to my heart. And this is, of course, always very tricky because the 3 that I can introduce means that there are hundreds that I cannot talk about, and they're also very close to my heart. But I picked 3 because this has to be a short talk. So let's start with, this is the directory of platform co-ops that you can find on our website. But I want to start with Co-op Ride, which is a driver-owned platform cooperative. And we have Eric Foreman here, the co-founder, with close to 4,000 drivers now that pays between 10 and 30% more than the big ride-sharing companies to those drivers and charges passengers 5% less. And even though they are a new company, they are already one of the largest worker cooperatives in the United States. Or take Airbnb, which is a community-based alternative to short-term rental platforms, soon available in 120 cities and towns with over 4,500 hosts. Half of Airbnb's commission goes to community projects, such as a food distribution center in Genoa. Right? So now you might be wondering, right? If everyone gets a say, at least the people who do not come from co-ops here, then you might be wondering, if everyone gets a say, how is this not a total mess, right? A mess in terms of leadership, right? In terms of management, right? What, everybody has a say, how would that ever work? And the answer is, well, they do what everybody else is doing. They hire management, right? Look at Mondogan. They hire skilled programmers. But the difference is that the rules that management enforces are decided upon by all, right? So there you see a big difference. So far, I've told you about platform co-ops that are transforming the area of labor, right? So this was all focused on labor in the sectors of transportation and short-term rental and so on, but they have a potential to change entire other industries, from care to the culture and arts sector, to higher education, the data economy, and so on. So what would it look like if data were managed by a co-op, right? Francesca alluded to this. A cooperative data trust, right? Or data cooperatives are emerging left and right. Imagine a social media co-op that's owned by users. A platform co-op like that has no fiduciary duty to shareholders, which means that they can decide which data are collected in the first place. They can offer more privacy and transparency and make users the beneficiary of the data that they are generating. So because we're here in Berlin, which is also a startup center, it's not quite Silicon Valley, but aspiring to be, you might be thinking of scalability, and I know that this is on the mind of many of you, right? You say like, I know for sure, in fact, some of the scholars among you will say like, well, Trevor, like how will this ever scale? How will this ever, face up to Google or Apple or Uber? And a few things on that. So platform co-ops don't really scale the traditional Silicon Valley way. I mean, in some ways they do. In 2009, Up and Go went up 97% from 2018. But remember, right, that the goal of platform cooperatives isn't to go public or maximize profit, like a traditional tech platform would. They scale very differently. So they scale more affordably than brick-and-mortar cooperatives. They scale by creating networks of co-ops that are then able to compete. They scale more quickly because members of the co-ops can be anywhere in the world. And they scale democracy because power can be decentralized through distributed ledgers or crypto networks. So that's why I want instructors to teach about this model in law schools, in business schools, in high schools, in all schools. And that's why I encourage entrepreneurs to start one, to consider starting one instead of another typical gig economy platform. And that's why I think that incubators should really include this model, and why I think that unions should start platform cooperatives, and why I want ethical social impact investors, if there are any here in the audience or online, to consider them and create an amazing legacy of equality. So now I'm not here to tell you that this is sort of a one-fits-all solution in any way, shape, or form. I think this is not the one solution to fix economic inequality. But we need more variety in the economy. I think that is definitely clear. We need unionized private enterprises. We need tech worker alliances, employee ownership, in addition, right, to platform cooperatives, because we face big challenges, but here's what gives me a lot of hope, right? When we see that markets fail and government safety nets break down, people turn to each other. right? They have done this for hundreds of years. People cooperate to form food cooperatives so that they can feed themselves. They form platform cooperatives so that they can make a living cleaning people's homes. And when markets and governments for too long fail to address structural racism, misogyny, and economic inequality, they form institutions, right? Such as the Black Panthers Free Breakfast Program for Children, or the AFL-CIO, the largest federation of unions in the United States. So the aspiration to participatory democracy has spread all over the world, and now it's time for it to spread in the workplace. Thank you.